I see a show of hands? He's an astronaut. He's also a colonel in the United States Air Force. Now he's retired. He wrote this letter to the United Nations, and in the first paragraph he says, "I wanted to convey to you my views on our extraterrestrial visitors, popularly referred to as UFOs, and suggest what might be done to properly deal with them." Certainly. I was waiting for the gasps to die away. I believe that these extraterrestrial vehicles and their crews are visiting this planet from other planets, which obviously are a little more technically advanced than we are here on Earth. I feel that we need to have a top-level coordinated program to scientifically collect and analyze data from all over the Earth concerning any type of encounter and determine how best to interface with these visitors in a friendly fashion. What's another reason for a one-world government? I'll tell you why. If people can't get on a bus with black people without causing incidents, if they can't accept a Chinese person who moves into their neighborhood because they're a chink, how in the hell are we going to interface with a completely alien race from another planet? Okay, next slide. This is in my book too. A lot of this stuff is in my book, with a lot of stuff that you're not seeing here. In fact, there's a lot of stuff in my book that nobody has ever seen before in their life, outside the secret government. This is an accident report that occurred at Ellsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota, 7 miles southwest of Niland, South Dakota. They got an alarm situation that at a missile site called L9, there had been a security breach. They sent a SAT team out that consisted of Airman First Class Jenkins and Airman First Class Reiki. There was SAT alert team, or security alert team called SAT. Next slide. When they got out there, they saw these crazy little guys running around in silver suits with helmets on their head and something hovering real bright above the missile silo. Reiki went up the hill, challenged them, told them to stop. They didn't stop. He raised his M16, and they blasted him with some kind of a light, melted his M16. They never even found a piece of it, and gave him second and third degree burns all over his hands and arms. He called back to Jenkins, who came from the vehicle. Jenkins saw 2 of them, fired at both of them, hit one in the helmet, one in the chest. They both fell to the ground. A few seconds later, got up and ran off and went up into this craft, which zoomed away into the sky. Further investigation showed that the nuclear components of the warhead was missing from the missile. Next. And next. UFO photographed over Disneyland, that's it down there. In the space of clicking the shutter of the camera, this thing moved back and forth about 12 times and then caught it here. That's how fast it was moving. And the reason I included this, because while people who go to Disneyland may be interested in fantasy, they're usually families, they're usually middle-class people, they're usually respectable, they're usually credible, and thousands of them saw this. Next. There it is. That's incredibly fast when you figure that during the time the shutter snapped, it moved back and forth that many times. Next. This is a Billy Myers picture. One of the things that I think is incredibly suspicious about his still photographs is they're always sticking out of the tree. However, how much costing you, because he has produced some movie film which is incredible. It's been analyzed by different countries, different people, different scientists. They can find nothing wrong with it. Shows craft way out in the distance with trees in between, flying over cars that are moving on the ground and all kinds of things. Next. This is one sitting on the ground. Looks like, never mind. Next. This is a drawing that an abductee made of the craft that they were supposedly abducted and taken up into. Next. This is one of the best of the historical, genuine photographs of UFOs that exists. Because of the different things in the photograph, you're able to obtain perspective, depth, and you're able to triangulate and compute the size and shape and distance away from the camera of the saucer. Next. This is another very good one. Next. This was over Phoenix, Arizona. It was seen by hundreds of people. Next. This was taken over Mount Rainier in 1948. It's original Kodachrome slide, which we made the prints from. And I made slides from the prints that we had then, and we also made 4x5 negatives and transparencies in case something ever happens to the slide. This is given to us by someone who works in the government whose identity cannot be revealed. This is perfectly symmetrical. It is not a meteor. It is moving exactly parallel to the ground. This is ionized air. It is not fire or flame. Next. This is commonly what's known as a lenticular cloud formation. This red haze over here is the test firing of a rocket at the Rocket 9 facility at the west end of the San Fernando Valley. I only know that because I used to live right on top of the mountain next to it. Next. Somebody's hat blew off. Next. Notice that photograph was taken by the local barber. These are photographs that were taken in New Mexico and Colorado during a particularly heavy, what they call a flap. There's a lot of sightings by a lot of people in one area. And there were a lot of photographs came out of that. These are some out of the newspaper. I tried to photograph them so that they can be identified as not something that I made up. I have been accused of being the most rotten bastard that ever lived, making up everything, phoning photographs. So I have to be very careful. Next. This photograph was taken over London. It's one of my favorite. I have a degree in photography, and this is a very artistic photograph. It's a very rare photograph, and it is a very unusual subject, and I have to like it. Next. This is another part of what I call Project Snowbird, to make the public think that what they're seeing can be explained away by technology like this. And you saw some of it on the news about the war. They said they had things that can fly over the enemy and do recon with no pilot in them, so no loss of life if it gets shot down. That's what that is. Next. And next. And this is just about the Aurora spacecraft that they fly in Nevada. It's what they call a TAV, Trans-Atmospheric Vehicle, which literally takes off from Groom Lake, flies completely out of the atmosphere, can orbit the Earth, and I believe that it can do more than that, but that's where I'll leave it. Next. This is the first photograph that we had of the UFO over Mount Rainier taken in 1948. The man at first would not allow us to even touch the slide. So we took a camera and made a picture of the slide, blew up the slide, made a print, and made Polaroids from the print, and then we're photographing the Polaroid. That's how crazy we were getting, until finally he agreed to allow us to use the slide, and we were able to make the prints that we have in the transparencies and the 4x5 negatives to preserve that image. Next. We go through a lot of work to produce the material that we have, believe me. It costs a lot of money, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of searching, sometimes it takes begging and pleading and everything else. Next. And next. Next. This is what's called a cigar-shaped object. This appeared in Omni magazine, and this is a photograph, taken photograph of